Welcome to the Conversations with CommerceNext podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with CommerceNext and presented by Wunderkind. Ben Kaufman, CEO of experiential toy retailer Camp, tells Veronica Sansev and I he's not in the business to sell. He's in the business to create wonderful family experiences that happen to result in a product sale. That being said, Kaufman and his team have created innovative marketing and merchandising programs that are getting attention in the crowded toy industry worldwide. With an entrepreneurial career and a relentless customer-focused orientation, he takes us through the genesis of Camp, how he flexed the concept and the organization through the COVID era, and his latest thinking on both the purpose of retail and the people and strategy to build an organization as agile and nimble as many of his guests.
We think of our stores as theaters and our themes as shows, and the show changes every quarter, and so that drives repeat traffic. It keeps the store fresh, and it also gives us a dimension to our business model, which I could talk about later. And we do lots of programming, not just at the theme level, but also at the event levels.
Let's listen in now.
So welcome to Conversations with CommerceNext, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm joined here with the producer and co-host of Conversations with CommerceNext, Michael LeBlanc.
Hi, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Excellent. I've had the pleasure of being in your Hudson Yards store. I think it was like just literally weeks after it opened up. It was January 2019. So I've had a taste of the Camp experience, but I'm really looking forward to learning a lot more.
Before the world ended.
In the before time, as I like to call it.
Yes, good.
Well, Ben, you have a real entrepreneurial spirit, having been at the helm of some pretty amazing companies, including Camp. Talk to us about your career journey and how it prepared you to start and lead Camp.
Yeah, so I started, my first company was called Mophie. It was named after my two dogs, Molly and Sophie. And it was an Apple accessory company, most well known for the Mophie Juice Pack, which was an iPhone case with a built-in battery behind it. And, funny thing happens when you make a consumer product is people start coming up to you with their own product ideas. And I was inspired by, what was going on in social media at the time. Facebook was first starting and so on. And I thought it'd be really cool to make a social media site, like a community-based site where people could share their product ideas, and we brought the best ones to life. And so I sold Mophie and started a company called Quirky, which was an invention platform that did just that. And that company made hundreds of consumer products, sold into retailers around the world, but ultimately died a pretty quick death in the summer of 2015 for a number of reasons. Largely, we were making more products than we were able to market and find distribution for. So we were really great at making stuff, and we weren't great at selling stuff. And so after that company died, I was very focused on trying to, I spent the first, call it 10 years of my career making things. And I was very focused on kind of switching gears into, okay, let me get really good at selling things. And did a number of small kind of product companies that were less focused on the innovation of the actually individual item, but more focused on the innovation around the marketing of an item. And that led me to become initially the chief commerce officer at BuzzFeed, and then ultimately the chief marketing officer at BuzzFeed, where I helped them, diversify their revenue and become more than just an advertising-based business model. We were really focused on direct-to-consumer product innovation, partnerships with brands and retailers, and so on. Really kind of connecting media to direct-to-consumer monetization. So that was like life pre-Camp, and then Camp came along, and we started Camp in June of 2018, and it's been a fun ride.
That's awesome. And I remember Quirky because I still have the scissors I bought from Quirky that were like,
those scissors are great.
They were amazing scissors.
I still use those scissors like every day.
Yeah, because you can open boxes or cut paper. They serve both purposes. They're brilliant.
It was called the Quirky sheath. You could still find them around if you look around. And yeah, I use them to open an Amazon box almost every day.
That's so great. So one of the interesting things about your background is that you create or you align yourself with experimentation and experiential retail. We talked about some of those businesses in your background. How did they help you imagine the concept that became Camp?
Yeah, I mean, so as a marketer at BuzzFeed, I was, often in a room with other marketers who spent a lot of money on experiential marketing, whether that be a pop-up or an event or so on. And these things really had very little to do with transactions, very little to do with kind of a lower funnel conversion. And it was kind of really, really inefficient. Like I was like confused why people were doing these big experiential stunts. Like it was cool for the brand, but it didn't really have anything to do with the product. And it felt to me that like the future of everything was doing experiential at a point of sale. And that was part of the early inspiration for Camp was, at the time I had a 1.5-year-old and another kid on the way. Toys R Us had just went out of business. And it felt to me that the world of family was an untapped market, an underserved market in terms of national coverage. And in order for real estate centers to survive, they need to drive traffic of young families, and no one takes space focused on families. And that was the beginning.
Interesting.
Ben,
Sorry.
Go ahead,
so
Brian.
it seems like the idea for Camp came from this need to have a place for families to gather, as opposed to like the need to sell things. Is that right?
Yeah, we're not a transactional brand at all. We're a retailer. We're not a transactional brand. We want to help families have fun together, and ultimately, more often than not, that results in a transaction. But the purpose of Camp is to help families have fun together.
Ben, tell me, help me for our listeners unpack Camp a little bit. For those maybe who haven't experienced it, maybe have heard of it but don't really understand it. You describe yourself you just described yourself basically as an experience first retailer, I guess you could say, a family experience company. As I said, I've been to your store in Hudson Yards, but for the folks listening, just tell us about Camp, how many stores you have, and a bit of the sense of the physicality of it and the concept. And then we'll kind of get into, the before time Camp, and then how you've morphed Camp through the COVID era.
Sure. Yeah. So we started the company with the intent of being a national retail chain. We currently have 6 stores open. We'll have 9 open by the end of the year. And the general concept of Camp is that we want to help families answer the question, what should we do today? And our physical concept is pretty simple. You walk into a store, it feels like a small town, cozy, old time general store. And it sells toys and gifts and apparel, and it kind of looks like a small little cozy old time toy store. But the secret to Camp is that there's a magic door. And behind the magic door, kids push it open, and there's an 8,000 square foot black box theater in the back. And this space, it transforms every quarter or so with a different theme that marries play, product, and programming. So the 3 things: play, it's kind of like an indoor playground, but it's product, so it's shoppable. And then the programming is, that theme is kind of like traveling theater. So we think of our stores as theaters and our themes as shows, and the show changes every quarter. And so that drives repeat traffic. It keeps the store fresh, and it also gives us a dimension to our business model, which I could talk about later. And we do lots of programming, not just at the theme level, but also at the event level. So in the mornings, we'll do things like yoga for the toddlers or music class. And then in the afternoon, it's after school programs for school age kids. At nighttime, we do things like date night drop off, where you can drop your kid off at 6 and pick them up at 9, and you can go out to dinner. So we really are there to serve local families. And again, answer that what to do today question by being kind of like what Starbucks did for professionals, we try and do for families. Give them a place to hang outside of homework and school.
Interesting. So this isn't a history podcast, but let's talk about how you adapted the concept for the COVID era, which has put some big constraints on in the short or medium term. What did you do with the online part of the business? And Veronica was telling me about this really interesting application or process you built so that the kids could actually participate in at a transactional level. So tell us a bit about how you flexed over the past 18 months.
Yeah, so if you rewind the clock to March of 2020, we had gone from one store to 5 stores in the 60 days prior to the pandemic. So we had just opened 4 stores. We had exactly 0 e-commerce business. Frankly, our website was basically just like a place where you could find the hours for our stores. We were really focused on our brick and mortar growth. Now, all of our team's background at that point was internet. We're all internet people. We know nothing about brick and mortar retail. So when March 15th came along, we all had a leadership meeting. We all kind of looked ourselves in the eye, and we were like, "Oh, we know how to do this.
Huh.
We know how to do this. We don't know how to run retail stores, but we know how to do this." And so we did a number of things. First thing we did was we realized that my son's birthday was March 15th. And we realized there were going to be a lot of kids celebrating their birthday in a pandemic. So first thing we did was launch virtual birthday parties. And we launched virtual birthday parties like 24 or 48 hours into the pandemic. We held over 50,000 kids' birthdays last year. This started as a free thing where we would hold a big end of day birthday party at 5 p.m. every day for any kid to chime in and do things. Then we started getting sponsorships. Sponsorship's a big part of our business model. And then we started doing private birthday parties for friend groups and families. We also then decided that the summer was going to be weird in 2020, and we wanted to create programming to keep families having fun together online and answer that "what should we do today" question in the virtual world. So we partnered with Walmart and a company called Echo and built something called Camp by Walmart, which was a 150 episode interactive program that had celebrity involvement with like Neil Patrick Harris and LeBron James and Drew Barrymore and Jennifer Garner. And we produced over, like a couple hundred episodes of interactive content that was not just like fun things for families to do together, but things that could be shopped. So that really it played well into our play, product, and programming kind of mantra. Then as Christmas came along, we did something called the Camp White Elephant Party. E-commerce was always something we struggled with at camp because we're not, as I said, a transactional brand, and right. E-commerce has no soul. It has no heart. It is purely, this is the product, this is the price, and this is how quickly you're going to get it. And that's just not us. That's not us, right? And so we had this idea of turning a Secret Santa party or a White Elephant party into a virtual platform, and basically making gift giving among friend groups or family and so on into a virtual game. So you were able to go on camp.com, buy a product, start a game room, invite your friends or family or colleagues in, and then you would unwrap each other's gifts, steal gifts from one another, and then we ship the right gift to the right person. So we really eventized, gifting. And this was like an aha for us. This was like, oh my God, e-commerce can be fun. E-commerce can be just as fun as what we do in our stores. And so then we started building out more experiential e-commerce products. And I think the thing you were hinting out is called the Camp Present Shop, which is the first place kids can shop online. So kids make up over 25% of the internet is under the age of 16, but they can't shop online because of regulations like COPA and other things. And so we built a platform where kids can shop online. Parents put in a budget. Kids drag and drop products into their cart till they're out of money. They get to design a card. And then we wrap it all up as a gift and ship it out as like a good. So we really put kids in the driver's seat there and kind of enabled e-commerce for kids for the first time online.
That's really innovative. Did you ever have during your journey, whether it's even in the before time, the toy category, did you ever have any second thoughts about the industry that you were getting in, the sector of the retail? I mean, the toy category is really struggling when you were opening your stores, just trying to find itself. I guess this, in other words, what it was its answer, as you mentioned, Toys R Us had just gone under. FAO Schwartz, which was a lot about experience, had struggled. The category itself was down double digits. Did you ever think twice about how that blend of retail, because both the sponsorship and the retail are going to pay a few of the bills? Did you ever have second thoughts, or was it always, we are so sure that there's an opportunity for family focused theater entertainment experience that there was never a second thought?
No, I don't. We didn't think very hard about it. To be honest, we were just like, people have kids. That's not going away. People need to get their kids out of the house. I mean, that's still proving to be true, even though people need to stay home for safety reasons. But we don't consider ourselves a toy store. We sell a lot of toys, We'll continue to sell a lot of toys. We don't consider ourselves a toy store. And if anything, we I think will help define the future of the industry in the sense that like it's less about the things and it's more about the feeling you have when you buy the thing. The example I give is I grew up in New York. My favorite thing to do was get my parents to bring me to FAO Schwartz, the old FAO Schwartz, not the zombie FAO Schwartz. And I can tell you everything about that store. I can tell you different times I went. I cannot tell you what I bought. I don't remember. I don't remember what I walked out of there with. I remember some candy. I remember some whatever. Like it wasn't about the thing. Like sure, I'm sure at the moment as a kid I was like, I want the Hot Wheels. But like that isn't the memory that is ingrained in my brain. And I any parent I talk to who I'm like, remember the toy store when you were a kid? Remember going to it? Be like, yeah. Do you remember things that you bought? Like maybe like you remember a hit toy over Christmas or a thing there, but like you went to that store and you remember going to that store, you love that store, and the store is more implanted in your brain than the thing. And that's why we're building the brand we're building.
That's very cool. Really interesting. Ben, you mentioned, when after Quirky, you joined BuzzFeed because you were interested in figuring out how to kind of sell products. I'd love for you to dive into the trade craft behind your marketing and merchandising strategy. How do you generate excitement around the brand? I mean, Camp is an exciting brand. And how do you successfully market the combination of experience, product, and e-commerce together? Because all of those businesses you described, Present Shop, the stores, they have a common theme, but they're still quite different.
Yeah, I don't have it all figured out. We're still early in our journey, and our journey's been a windy road with COVID and everything. But I'll tell you, like we've been really lucky to align ourselves with brands that customers already love, right? And the sponsorship part of our business, while great for the economics of what we're doing, also has allowed us to act a lot bigger than we are. Having Camp by Walmart in the middle of a global pandemic and having names like the ones I mentioned previously in our videos, like that was because we aligned ourselves with Walmart and other partners. And but letting kids take over the store and run the store in April of this year, which was a great event for us, was because we had a great partnership with Ally Bank, who wanted to teach financial literacy to kids, and we thought that was cool. And so, while sponsorship is a part of our model, and it's not just retail media in the traditional sense that you may think of it, it's also a way for us to get our brand out there in a way that's unique, and it forces us to find unique messages that resonate with parents. But I will tell you, above all, being a usually free, indoor, climate-controlled place for families to hang out together and make some memories is a thing you don't have to do too much aggressive marketing around.
Yeah, the product is so good that it kind of markets itself in some ways.
Yeah, as we say, mommy gangs run strong. We if we please them, if we please customers that come in, every mom that's happy is going to tell at least 5 other moms that's happy that they were happy, and the thing builds and builds from there. It really, just like a great article at a company like BuzzFeed, where you read it and you like text message it to a group of friends, they text message it to a group of their friends. It grows a life of its own, and we think our concept has that built into it.
That's awesome. So I want to switch gears for a second and talk about career advice. We like to talk about that on Conversations with CommerceNext. I want you to share kind of how you see the progression of your career. In many ways, you've created a lot of your own opportunities, which is not a path that everyone can or will take. What are the key characteristics that our listeners should think about when they consider new ventures?
I'm not like an advice person. I like famously don't give career advice because I don't have any. But I will tell you that every time I go into something, I go into it fully. When I started Mophie, I wanted to do Mophie for the rest of my life. When I started Quirky, it was because I felt like it was just an evolution of Mophie. And when Quirky ended, I had no choice but to be done with Quirky. But I kind of like continued on the journey and tried to figure out what was wrong with Quirky. Oh, it was the sell side. Let me focus on that. joined BuzzFeed. I had the intention of being there for a long time. This one this kind of willed itself into fruition, and I intend to do it for as long as I can. And so, as some people think of me as like a frenetic, serial entrepreneur person, but I'm not. Like, I'm very much like single focus thing. But stuff happens, and that happens in an entrepreneurial career, but it also happens in a corporate career. And my suggestion to anyone doing the thing is like, let those things happen. Like, let the path deviate and like become like willed into, forced into, whatever the words you want, doing things that you didn't necessarily think you were going to want to or need to do, because those are the moments that, like, I think open up interesting opportunities.
Absolutely. And we've heard that a lot from folks on Conversations with CommerceNext, where it's a combination.
See, that's why I don't
like,
give advice, because you heard it already,
It's, no, Ben, but yours, it's a different twist on something similar. I think it's always the theme, that the connection that I was going to try to make is that it's a combination of kind of identifying the gaps you have in your own experience and being open to new possibilities that generally kind of lead the path. Now, the specifics are always a little different, but I think part of the advice that I think can be given is just be open to opportunities and look for gaps that could be filled by like taking on a new role.
Right on.
I'll give it to now, see, not exactly the same, little different.
Yeah, right on.
I want to just flip the tables just for 1 second, because we talked about kind of your career progression. Now I'd love to hear kind of what you look for when you hire someone to join your team. How important are education, experience in retail or retail related industries? What essentially makes a successful hire for you?
None of the things you just mentioned. I think generally I value people that come out of retail. I do, because there's a lot of like knowledge there, but also like there's a lot of like pre-existing kind of bias around what's possible and what's not possible. And we like to hire people who think anything's possible, if there's a great team focused on it. So that usually don't find those people in retail, to be honest, unfortunately. When we have hired people from retail, like our director of stores, for instance, who ran a big part of Disney's retail fleet and Apple's and so on, like they come from very show focused retailers that aren't necessarily focused on like closing list, opening list, check the box sales goal, but they're more focused on like, what does someone feel when they're in the store? So we have hired retail people. We don't look for retail people. We, more than anything, look for people who believe that crazy shit is possible, and that and are motivated by that, motivated by like the hunt of trying to thread the needle and do weird stuff.
Listening to your description of the past 36 months, it reminds me of something we talk about here in Canada. We talk about portaging. You get in the canoe and you go down fast moving water, but then you hit a dry patch and you got to pick up the canoe and kind of port it over to the next fast moving body of water. Put yourself 5 years into the future in terms of whether it's leadership, not really trends, but really your role as a leader. Do you imagine it different in 5 years? Are there things that have happened, or do you see yourself now set in the way your leadership style is? Talk about that for a little bit.
No, I mean, that's like in startup world, like my job is completely different every 6 months. Not because of pandemics, but just because of like the needs of the business are different, right? There's more executives that are hired. There's more processes that are in place. There's more, there's just a completely different business in every 6 months, and that's outside of extraneous circumstances like pandemics. It really has to do with who are the other people around the table. When you start a company, it's you and a couple other people, and then you're 3 years in, you have a little bit more infrastructure in place. 5 years from now, camp, if things are going well, camp will have dozens of more locations, probably more than that, hopefully more than that, and a much more robust leadership team. And so my job becomes more focused on the future and less focused on the day-to-day blocking and tackling. So we'll see, everything one day at a time.
Right on. Well, I think both your career, your orientation, and your team, if anything can be such, was kind of built for the agility needed for these times. So listen, congratulations on everything you've accomplished and your success. And I'm sure it's going to be and continue to be a success. And thanks so much for joining us on the Conversations with CommerceNext podcast and sharing your insights and professional journey. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you are speaking at CommerceNext IRL on September 28th, 29th in New York City, where you are today. Your session is Optimizing the Customer Journey E-commerce Experience that Delight Customers. You've certainly got a unique and fascinating perspective on that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So Ben, thanks again so much for taking time to join us.
No problem. Don't cancel that conference. Okay. We got to start doing this in-person stuff.
We're all in.
All right.
We're all in
All right,
person.
Good. All right. We'll see you there then.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care, Ben.
Bye. Thank you.